should kids be consuming raw milk? Well, according to this science here, the answer is yes. Raw milk is a perfectly healthy food for children, and it is a lot better than pasteurized dairy, and this is the data to prove it. Now, just as children benefit from raw breast milk, that's what all breast milk is. It's completely raw and pure. That is the perfect food for infants and children as they age. Raw breast milk is protected by a ton of healthy probiotics, healthy bacteria, healthy microbiota. It has been found in these studies that not only children, but also adults also benefit from raw cow's milk, complete with its protective microbiota that enhance gut health, immune function, nervous system function, and respiratory systems. Now, here's a really important point to note is that despite all these rising trends of raw milk over the past couple decades and more than 4.4% of our population consuming raw milk regularly, no child has died in the United States from consuming raw milk. And that's according to the CDC's own data set from 2005 to 2020. Now, you might be thinking back to the mid-1800s when we started pasteurizing milk in the first place. This is a video that we're going to talk about more on in the future, but the reason that milk became pasteurized in the first place was because of mid-1800s swill dairies. These were terrible, filthy conditions for the cows. It produced a terrible, foul-smelling milk, a bluish-colored milk that actually contained a lot of pathogenic bacteria, killing thousands upon thousands of kids and adults. But that type of environment, cows being raised in cities, Chicago, New York City, right next to distilleries, eating the grain mash from alcohol byproducts, this was a terrible environment, and this really gave a bad rap for milk, raw milk altogether. So instead of just choosing to raise cows in fields, in their natural environment, out in wide open pastures, and just adopting more sanitary practices, they said, let's just continue to keep raising the cows in these filthy conditions. Let's just boil it. Let's just cook it all together and kill off all the pathogenic bacteria. And it worked. But again, as we already laid out, it really destroyed a lot of these other beneficial compounds that makes raw milk beneficial to begin with. And pasteurizing the milk like this might make it safer acutely from pathogenic bacteria, but it is destroying all these other compounds and it's making it a more allergenic and inflammatory food to consume. Now, going back to that CDC data set that we just talked about at the beginning of this video, they reported there were 1,696 raw milk illnesses from 2005 to 2020, which is still less than pasteurized dairy. But of these raw milk illnesses, these did not contribute to inflammatory diseases like the pasteurized dairy did. And believe it or not, there was actually an inverse association, an opposite association of children drinking raw milk and inflammatory markers. They said in this study, an inverse association was observed for children drinking raw milk and HSCRP value, that is a marker of inflammation, implying a sustained anti-inflammatory effect for raw bovine milk that has been related to obesity, respiratory impairment, asthma severity, and atherogenic lipid profiles. Essentially saying the more raw milk the children drank, their inflammation levels went down. They didn't go up. Whereas pasteurized dairy actually can promote levels of inflammation because it's more allergenic to people. But speaking of children drinking raw milk, there was this study here that found that when children had an allergy to pasteurized milk, when they drank raw milk, they tolerated it. It didn't trigger their allergy symptoms, but when they drank pasteurized milk, they had adverse effects. And that is due to the fact that pasteurization destroys all the beneficial compounds that help the immune system. That's going to help people to digest it a little bit better. Now, to put the final nail in the coffin on this point, there have been several large studies, 7 studies that I'm going to list right here on the screen, that found that children who consumed raw milk developed no diarrheal illness, significantly fewer respiratory and ear infections. They had protection from inflammatory diseases, including atopy, asthma, and eczema, and they had improved immunologic and lung function later in life.